You ever walk into a room and just know, that every single person is sizing you up before you even make it to the counter? That was me that night, dragging my busted leg through a snowstorm, wearing a military jacket that had seen more years than I had sleep. I had about $7 to my name, nerves frayed like old rope, and honestly, I'd have traded all my medals for a cup of coffee that didn't taste like defeat. But what really stuck with Mewhat, I'll never forget, is how quick a town can turn on you. How two uniforms and a single phone call can flip an entire world upside down. Copper Ridge, Montana, isn't much when the snow falls. Main Street turns to a watercolor neon diner sign half dead, shadows peeking from behind every curtain. I made my way through it, boots crunching over ice, shoulders back the way soldiers do when pride is the last thing left. I remember pausing under the awning outside the Sagebrush Diner, shaking snow from my collar, bracing for the gauntlet inside. You know what I mean? That moment when you know you're about to be the punchline in somebody else's joke? Bell over the door jingled, warm and friendly, but all I got was the hush, everybody pausing, just long enough to make me wish I could melt into the linoleum. A mom near the window pulled her kid in close. An old guy gripped his mug like it might float off if he let go. I scanned the room 3 exits, kitchen door, faces memorized, years of muscle memory from too many nights in too many places where trouble didn't need a reason. The waitress, Rachel 20-something, ponytail, hands that shook just a little, came over, looking like she was expecting me to bite. "Evening," she said. I asked for coffee, black as regret, and a special if it didn't break the bank. She offered a small smile, said she'd make sure they add extra beans, no charge. I put down a wrinkled 10, paid up front, old habit. As she turned, she spotted the glint of metal below my pant cuff, a prosthetic, army issue. For a second, I saw something in her eyes shift, maybe pity, maybe respect, maybe just curiosity. Doesn't really matter, does it? Either way, she was the first person in days who didn't look right through me. What I didn't know, what none of us did, was how quickly dinner could turn into war. In the back booth, Sheriff Delaney and his lapdog Colton were working their way through another pot of bad coffee. Colton, always the mouth, nudged Delaney and muttered, "Dead Rose tonight. Delta Force Mama's back." Delaney snorted, said something about me being a poster girl for military failure. He wasn't quiet, wanted me to hear. Rachel heard too. She flinched but kept moving. I didn't flinch. Just opened my wallet, looked at my kid's photo. Maisie, dark curls, dimpled smile, eyes that still believed I could slay monsters. Sometimes I'd run my thumb over that photo just to remind myself I was still human. When Rachel brought the food beef stew, cornbread, and that blessed coffee, I thanked her. "Hope it's all right," she said, and I swear for 1 second I let my guard down. But peace in Copper Ridge is like warm sunlight in December, gone before you can soak it in. Colton swaggered over, loud enough for the whole room, told me to hurry up and get out, that drifters like me weren't welcome. Delaney, never one to miss a chance to play big man, said, "Rachel, check the silverware when she leaves." Can't trust people like that. Rachel turned red, but she wasn't about to risk her job for me. I put my spoon down, turned toward Colton, voice steady. "I fought for this country. Never asked a soul for a handout." You could hear the neon sign buzzing outside. Colton's eyes narrowed, and that's when Delaney stood, pulled his badge routine. "You're causing a disturbance," he said. Deputy, escort her out. Rachel tried to object, said I'd done nothing wrong. Delaney shot her down, just a flicker of threat, enough to remind her who signed her checks. Colton grabbed my arm rough. I didn't struggle, just straightened my coat, met Rachel's eyes, and said, "Call General Harold Whitaker. Tell him Eliza Whitmore's in trouble." Silence. Delaney laughed. "You think you're in some movie?" Rachel's hands trembled, but I caught her tucking her phone into her apron pocket, thumb tapping record. As they hauled me into the patrol car, Rachel's eyes followed, wide and unsure. That's the thing about moments like these, you never know which bystander will stand up and which will slip back into the wallpaper. But Rachel, she'd heard the call. That night, as the snow piled up outside, she replayed my words on her phone, then heart-pounding Googled the name. Realized Whitaker wasn't just a name drop. He was the real deal. That connection? It was the crack that let the light in. She called the Pentagon, got rerouted a dozen times, almost hung up. But Thina voice, deep, controlled, demanding. "This is General Whitaker. Repeat that name." When she did, there was a pause, then, "You've done the right thing. Don't talk to anyone else." Whitaker didn't hesitate, called in favors, set gears in motion. Within hours, his niece Ava, a civil rights attorney, was driving through the night toward Copper Ridge. By then, I was sitting in a cell, hands wrapped around the pendant Maisie made me, tuning out Colton's taunts. You learn in war to wait, to breathe, to trust the right signal. In town, Rachel was digging through diner security footage. Ava was researching property records. Turns out, Eliza Whitmore wasn't the only one they tried to vanish: homeless, veterans, single moms, anyone who got in the way of progress. Some at Pine Development, shell companies, real estate payoffs funneled through local cops. Yeah, that happened. Ava brought in Q, an old Delta buddy in a wheelchair who could hack the Pentagon with a flip phone. Rachel found more victims, same playbook, over and over. The cops were getting paid to make people disappear. Not just a one-off, but a campaign. Colton, Delaney, they weren't just bullies, they were cogs in something bigger, uglier. When Ava got me out, thanks to Rachel's recordings and a federal release order, she laid it out for Med. His was war. Not bullets and IEDs, but money, silence, power. We called them the old squad ghost. Trace, Doc, each one owing or owed by me. Each one carrying scars you can't see. They all came. Because for people like us, justice isn't a word, it's an action. We set up shop in a cabin outside town, turned it into a war room: dossiers, maps, surveillance logs. We traced money, tracked property deals, uncovered files with code names like Shield Hand. We found bonuses paid out every time a vagrant got locked up or run off. We documented, filmed, hacked, made it impossible for the story to be buried. Then the twist: Colton, desperate to kill the evidence, kidnapped Rachel. Tried to bait me, thinking I'd come alone. He wasn't wrong. I slipped into that warehouse, crawled through vents, bled into the floorboards to buy Rachel's freedom. Took a bullet for a waitress I'd met 4 days prior. That's the thing about standing your ground. Sometimes it means not making it out. Sometimes you pass the torch so someone else can finish the job. Rachel and the team got everything on Khmer. Last words, Colton's threats, the evidence on flash drives. Q blasted the story online. Rachel posted the video everywhere. And the world didn't just watch, they rose up. Justice for Eliza trended worldwide. Not because I was anyone special, but because so many people saw themselves in my fall and refused to let it be the last page. Congress held hearings. Ava took the fight to the Capitol. Ghost and Trace mapped out the rest of the Shield Hand network, and Doc set up a center for vets who came home broken but not beaten. The Dignity Act passed finally, laws that saw us, not as statistics, but as people. They built a house in my name, turned the warehouse where I fell into a place for new beginnings. My daughter, Maisie, found her way home not with me, but with Rachel, a woman who stood up when it mattered. At my funeral, soldiers and waitresses and mothers all stood together, a line of people who knew dignity sometimes costs more than a Purple Heart. And when the reporters asked Rachel what comes next, she just smiled and said, "Now we all know we carry more power than fear." That's my story, or as much of it as fits in the spaces between snowflakes and headlines. One life, one stand, 1,000 new stories beginning where mine left off. So here's my ask. What would you do, standing at the edge of someone else's silence? Would you walk away, or would you stand your ground? Let me know below, because justice only happens when enough of us refuse to sit down.